Have you ever wondered why the quietest person in the room sometimes carries the most dangerous strength? Not the kind that seeks to overpower, but the kind that can't be manipulated, controlled, or broken. What if I told you that when an empath, someone deeply sensitive, kind, and understanding, reaches their breaking point, they don't just snap, they awaken. And what emerges is not vengeance, but a level of self-mastery that even the narcissist never saw coming. This transformation is more than personal. It's psychological, it's spiritual, it's archetypal. Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist, once warned that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But for empaths, that acceptance is not optional. It is forced upon them through betrayal, manipulation, and the soul weariness of always giving more than they receive. And when that moment comes, when the empath stops trying to be understood and begins to understand themselves, something ancient shifts. What you're about to hear is not just a theory. It is a pattern that has echoed through history, hidden behind the stories of saints, sages, and survivors. The quiet one, the healer, the one everyone underestimated until they turned their pain into power. This video will take you on a journey into the psychology of the awakened empath, a journey that Carl Jung hinted at in his work on the individuation process, but which modern neuroscience, trauma recovery, and spiritual philosophy are now beginning to confirm in stunning detail. You'll learn why narcissists fear those who have healed their wounds. You'll discover the silent strength that arises not from revenge, but from reclaiming sovereignty. And you'll understand why, in the end, the empath who has integrated their shadow is not only immune to manipulation, but becomes the mirror that exposes the narcissist's deepest fear, being seen. Stay with me until the end of this video, because the final insight is the one no one talks about, the one that narcissists never want you to discover. And if this message resonates with you at any point, leave a comment below. 1 if you've felt this shift within yourself, or 0 if you're still searching for it. Either way, you're not alone. What you're about to learn could change how you see yourself and your power forever. There is a moment in every empath's life, a moment so subtle yet so irreversible that everything changes. It doesn't come with thunder or rage. It comes in silence, in stillness, in that final glance when someone who always said yes finally decides to say no. That moment is not weakness. It is power. And it terrifies the narcissist more than any scream ever could. Carl Jung once described the psyche as a battleground between opposites. Within every human lies the capacity for light and shadow, compassion and detachment, giving and restraint. But for the empath, this battlefield is not theoretical. It is lived, breathed, and felt in every relationship. Their soul becomes a tuning fork to the moods, needs, and unspoken wounds of others. And for a while, this feels like love, like purpose, like what they were born to do. But here lies the danger. When the world confuses that sensitivity for submission and that compassion for compliance, the empath is pushed, slowly, persistently, toward their edge. Not all at once, not violently, but drip by drip. It's in the way their needs are minimized, in how their forgiveness is taken for granted, in the way their silence is mistaken for weakness. Neuroscience now supports what Jung intuitively understood. Studies on mirror neurons have shown that highly sensitive people, like empaths, literally feel the emotions of others in their own nervous system. This biological empathy is a gift until it becomes a wound. When an empath absorbs too much toxicity without grounding, their brain begins to shift into a state of hypervigilance. Cortisol rises, sleep fragments. The nervous system gets hijacked by a survival loop. And yet, on the surface, they still smile, still listen, still give. But underneath, a transformation is quietly beginning. In ancient Taoist philosophy, water is considered the softest element, yet it is also the most persistent. It flows around obstacles, adapts, nourishes. But give it enough time, and water carves through stone. This is the empath's journey. They begin like rivers, open, fluid, nurturing. But when stone after stone is placed in their path, betrayal, gaslighting, dismissal, something else emerges. Still fluid, but now focused, now unstoppable. Psychologically, this is the beginning of what Jung called individuation, the process by which a person becomes whole by confronting and integrating the parts of themselves they were taught to repress. For the empath, that repressed part is often their anger, their ability to say enough, their capacity to detach. And this is where the tipping point begins. Let's pause here and look at a real-world example. Consider Maya, a school teacher in her late 40s, kind, selfless, loved by her students. At home, she spent years trying to heal a partner who manipulated her emotionally. She excused the criticism, justified the coldness, tried harder each time the love grew thinner. Until one night, after another apology that meant nothing, she didn't cry. She didn't argue. She simply looked in the mirror and saw someone she no longer recognized. That was her turning point. No explosion, no goodbye speech, just silence. And the next morning, she packed a suitcase and walked out. Not because she stopped loving, but because she finally started loving herself more. This was not rebellion. This was revelation. She had crossed the threshold. When this shift happens in an empath, it's not just personal, it's archetypal. As Jung would say, it is the hero's journey of the psyche. The empath descends into the underworld of emotional entanglement, faces their shadow, the part of them that allowed the pattern to continue, and reemerges with clarity, not to punish the narcissist, but to choose differently, to live differently. The narcissist, however, has no preparation for this shift. They rely on emotional predictability. They count on the empath to explain, to chase, to overfunction. So when the empath goes still, when they stop justifying, stop defending, stop absorbing, this silence becomes deafening. It is the collapse of the control structure. The narcissist is no longer fighting the same person. They are facing someone who no longer needs the relationship to feel whole. In the ancient Vedic texts of India, there is a concept called Shakti, the divine power that lies dormant within each soul. For the empath, that power is not triggered by rage, but by remembering. Remembering that they were never broken, only blocked. That their softness was never weakness, it was sacred. And sacred things, once awakened, do not negotiate with what tries to dim their light. Carl Jung wrote that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. For many empaths, that unconscious programming was to keep the peace, carry the pain, and make it all okay. But when consciousness arrives, so does sovereignty, and fate gives way to choice. And here is where the fire is born. It is easy to love your light, easy to accept your kindness, your gentleness, your desire to heal. But what about the parts you were taught to hide? The fire behind your eyes, the no that chokes in your throat, the silent scream inside your chest that says, I matter too. Carl Jung warned us long ago that the shadow, the part of the psyche we repress, deny, and disown, is not evil. It is simply unlived. For the empath, the shadow often takes the form of suppressed boundaries, swallowed anger, and the fear of being too much if they speak up. But here's the paradox. What we exile in ourselves doesn't vanish. It waits. And one day when we're tired enough of bleeding for people who never offer a bandage, it returns. Not to destroy us, but to make us whole. Jung called this integration, and it is one of the most sacred processes a human being can undergo. Most people run from their shadow. Empaths, on the other hand, learn to dance with it. And when they do, when they stop resisting their right to protect themselves, they stop being targets. They start becoming mirrors, reflecting truth, reflecting consequence, reflecting power. Let's take a closer look. Empaths are taught from an early age that love means selflessness, that being good means absorbing pain without retaliation, that being strong means staying silent. But modern trauma research, including work from Dr. Bessel van der Kolk and Dr. Gabor Mate, has shown that chronic self-abandonment, especially under emotional abuse, rewires the brain to normalize pain. The empath doesn't seek conflict, but they often attract those who do, because they've been conditioned to soothe storms they didn't start. This is not fate. This is programming. And like any pattern, it can be rewritten. One of Jung's greatest insights was this. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming who you are requires reclaiming the parts of yourself you gave away to feel safe. It means going back to the moment you silenced your intuition to keep the peace. The moment you felt something was wrong, but smiled anyway. The moment you knew someone was lying, but didn't call them out because you feared losing them. Empaths don't wake up through comfort. They awaken through collapse. Consider David, a man in his 50s who spent decades in ministry work, always giving, always sacrificing, always listening, until the day his eldest son lashed out with a rage that mirrored the very abuse David had endured in childhood. That night, David didn't pray for peace. He sat in silence, and for the first time, let his anger speak. Not outwardly, inwardly. He realized that forgiveness without boundaries is not holiness, it's self-erasure. That night, David didn't just meet his shadow, he embraced it. And in that embrace, he stopped rescuing those who refused to heal. He stopped shrinking his truth to fit others' comfort. He stopped calling suffering noble. This is the sacred alchemy Jung spoke of, the shift from being emotionally reactive to spiritually responsive. The empath who reclaims their shadow doesn't become cruel. They become clear. They begin to speak the language of energy. They sense manipulation before words are spoken. They see the smirk behind the compliment. They no longer need a reason to walk away. Intuition is enough. Ancient teachings echo this truth. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, there is a ritual called the weighing of the heart. At death, the heart is placed on a scale opposite the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. Only a heart free from falsehood could pass into eternal life. But what makes a heart light? Not the absence of pain, but the presence of authenticity. An empath who integrates their shadow no longer tries to be light for everyone else. They become light because they are true. Their heart is no longer weighed down by guilt, self-denial, or obligation. They understand that saying no is an act of love, just not the kind others are used to. This is where the narcissist begins to panic, because the power dynamic has shifted. The person they once controlled with guilt and gaslighting no longer responds. The hooks no longer catch. The games no longer play. The empath is no longer feeding their dysfunction. They've become invisible to manipulation because they've become visible to themselves. Jung warned that those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. The empath's awakening is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is subtle and surgical. It happens in the grocery store when they don't return the call. It happens in the living room when they turn off the argument before it starts. It happens in the heart, where they used to beg for crumbs and now demand respect in silence. And perhaps most powerfully, they stop needing to be understood. They start needing only to understand themselves. There comes a moment when silence becomes more powerful than words. A moment when the empath no longer explains, no longer defends, no longer tries to be understood. And in that silence, something radical happens. Not to the world, but within themselves. The war ends. The loop breaks. The spell shatters. Carl Jung once wrote, "To withdraw attention from something is to take away its power." For the empath, this is the turning point. Detachment is not escape, it is clarity. And clarity is what the narcissist cannot survive. For years, the empath danced to the rhythm of someone else's chaos. They soothed, they solved, they softened every blow. But healing doesn't mean always staying. Sometimes it means walking away so completely that your absence echoes louder than your presence ever did. Why does this terrify the narcissist? Because detachment breaks their most vital tool, control through reaction. The manipulator thrives on predictability. They provoke, then feed on the emotional aftermath. If you cry, they win. If you argue, they win. If you defend yourself, they twist it into guilt. But if you go still, completely still, everything collapses. This isn't a new idea. In Buddhist teachings, there is a powerful term, upekkha, equanimity. It refers to the deep spiritual calm that arises not from ignorance, but from inner mastery. The Buddha taught that true peace comes when we stop clinging, not just to people, but to the need to fix, to explain, to be seen. In this state, the empath no longer engages in emotional warfare. They become untouchable, not through force, but through detachment. Let me tell you about Elena, a mother of 3, always kind, always available. For years, she tolerated a partner who gaslighted her constantly, blamed her for things he did, denied her reality, made her feel small even when she gave everything. Then one night, while doing the dishes, he made a cruel remark about her appearance. And instead of snapping back, she simply turned off the faucet and said nothing. She didn't cry. She didn't defend. She didn't even flinch. That was the night she woke up. What he didn't realize was that her silence wasn't passive. It was packed with power. It was her refusal to participate in a lie. And in the days that followed, as she grew quieter, he grew louder, desperate, erratic, trying to provoke the old response. But it never came, because she had unplugged from the cycle. Her stillness wasn't weakness. It was evolution. Carl Jung described this as the transcendent function, the capacity to hold inner tension without collapsing into reactivity. It is the highest form of psychological maturity. When you feel the urge to respond but choose not to. When you see the game but no longer play it. When you walk away, not because you've stopped caring, but because you finally care about yourself. And neuroscience supports this too. Dr. Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA, coined the term window of tolerance to describe the optimal zone in which our nervous system can function calmly, even under stress. The more trauma we've experienced, the smaller that window becomes, and the more reactive we are. But when the empath begins healing, when they set boundaries, meditate, reconnect with their body, that window expands. They stop spiraling. They breathe. They observe. And in that space, they reclaim choice. This is what the narcissist cannot comprehend, that the empath's silence is not a void. It's a sanctuary, a space where they no longer seek justice through revenge, but through release. They don't need an apology. They don't need closure. They've given it to themselves. In Sufi mysticism, there's a beautiful proverb. Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. When an empath learns to speak in silence, they stop trying to be heard by people who are committed to misunderstanding them. They begin listening to the only voice that matters, their own. This silence is not absence. It is presence, refined. It's the mother who doesn't argue with her adult child's entitlement anymore. She simply stops funding it. It's the friend who no longer explains why they can't be someone's emotional landfill. They just stop showing up. It's the partner who doesn't issue threats or ultimatums. They just quietly pack a bag and never look back. This is not drama. It is liberation. And it is terrifying to those who only knew how to control through chaos. The narcissist will often respond to this silence with escalation, grand gestures, love bombing, or even cruel retaliation. But it doesn't matter anymore, because the empath is no longer tuned to that frequency. They've risen above it, like a lighthouse, no longer trying to rescue every drowning ship, just shining, steady, silent. Carl Jung taught that the most powerful position in any relationship is inner stillness, born from understanding, not withdrawal born from fear. The awakened empath doesn't run. They simply stand so firm in their truth that everything false dissolves around them. And this is where the paradigm shatters. The narcissist, so used to pushing buttons and pulling strings, is suddenly holding a puppet that won't dance. The stage is empty. The script no longer works. And for the first time, they are alone with the only person they truly fear, themselves. The empath has exited the theater. What happens when the empath stops surviving and starts living? When their pain no longer defines them, but refines them? When the same heart that once broke in silence now beats with a deeper rhythm, one that doesn't just feel, but leads. This is not the end of the empath's story. It is their rebirth. Carl Jung believed that the process of individuation, the integration of the self, was not just a psychological milestone, but a spiritual one. He described it as a return to wholeness, where the fragmented parts of the psyche are brought into harmony. For the empath, this rebirth is not a single moment. It is a slow unfolding, a rising from ashes, a homecoming. The journey begins when the empath stops seeking external validation. They no longer ask, "Am I enough for them?" Instead, they whisper, "Am I enough for myself?" And the answer at last is yes. From this place of self-ownership, something sacred awakens. The empath who has faced their shadows no longer fears the dark. They become light bearers, not in the poetic sense, but in the truest one. Their presence brings clarity. Their energy becomes medicine. And their story, once filled with silence and survival, now becomes a map for others still wandering. This transformation echoes across mystical traditions. In the writings of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, he described the soul's journey as a spiral of ascent, where suffering is not punishment but preparation. He wrote, "In the furnace of affliction, the soul becomes tempered, clarified, awakened." For the empath, the furnace was betrayal. The affliction was abandonment. But what emerged was gold, purified, resilient, and fiercely compassionate. Let's talk about Jonah. Jonah was a trauma therapist who, for most of his life, never allowed himself to feel anger. Raised in a strict religious household, he believed anger was sin. But as he continued his practice, he found himself exhausted, depleted, not by his clients, but by the part of himself he had exiled. One day, during a silent retreat, it hit him. He had spent his life healing others while quietly bleeding inside. That night, alone in his cabin, he didn't pray for peace. He prayed for truth. And what rose within him wasn't pretty. It was rage. It was grief. It was the boy inside him screaming for boundaries, for protection, for recognition. But instead of pushing it down, he let it rise. And when the sun came up, Jonah wasn't the same man. He was more. From that day on, Jonah's work changed. He no longer rescued. He reflected. He no longer absorbed. He illuminated. He taught his clients not how to avoid pain, but how to transmute it, because he had done it himself. This is the power of the awakened empath. They don't preach. They embody. They don't save. They stand beside. And in doing so, they activate something in others, something ancient, something sleeping. It's why so many people feel inexplicably safe around them. Not because they're soft, but because they're sovereign. Jung believed that the healed individual becomes a bridge between the conscious and unconscious. And this is precisely what the awakened empath becomes: a guide, a lighthouse, a living example of what it means to survive without becoming bitter, to forgive without forgetting, to love without losing yourself. Spiritual philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin once said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." The empath, once awakened, begins to embody this truth. They no longer just react to life. They respond with vision. They no longer just feel energy. They direct it. Their emotions become instruments, not shackles. From a neuroscience perspective, this transformation is not just poetic. It's physiological. The brain of a person who meditates, sets healthy boundaries, and processes trauma shows measurable changes in the prefrontal cortex, enhancing emotional regulation, empathy, and decision-making. The empath who once felt overwhelmed by the world now becomes a conscious co-creator within it. And here's the most beautiful part. They start teaching not with words, but with presence. People sense something in them: groundedness, insight, a calm that doesn't flinch in chaos. They become mentors, coaches, healers, artists, poets, or simply they become quiet elders who make everyone feel a little safer just by being in the room. The narcissist, by contrast, often remains locked in the external, always performing, controlling, grasping. But the empath has turned inward, found gold in their wounds, and in doing so, stepped into the rarest kind of power, the power that doesn't need to prove itself. And in a world obsessed with noise, their quiet becomes revolutionary. There is a rare kind of peace that comes not from being alone, but from finally knowing how to be with others without losing yourself. This is the hallmark of the sovereign empath, the one who no longer seeks love to feel whole, but brings wholeness into love. Up until this point, the empath's journey has been one of survival, awakening, and rebirth. But now a new chapter begins, one that many never reach. It's the stage where the empath becomes sovereign, whole, centered, unshakable. And in this sacred space, they begin to redefine what it means to connect, not from need, but from consciousness. Carl Jung taught that relationships are the crucible of individuation. It is in our connections that we meet our deepest wounds, and also our highest potential. The empath, once entangled in relationships based on codependency, guilt, or unconscious wounds, now steps into a new paradigm: conscious relationships. What does this mean? It means choosing relationships based on resonance, not rescue. It means no longer pouring love into black holes, hoping they'll turn into gardens. It means recognizing when someone is not available emotionally and walking away without needing to fix or prove anything. And most of all, it means relating from fullness, not from fear. The sovereign empath knows this. Love is not sacrifice. It is recognition. When two whole people meet, they don't complete each other. They expand each other. Let's pause and meet Alina. Alina spent years in what looked like a perfect marriage. Outwardly, she was the supportive wife, the peacemaker, the emotional glue that held everything together. But inside, she was slowly disappearing. Every compromise cost her a piece of truth. Every silence echoed louder than words. When she finally left, it wasn't in anger, it was in clarity. And after years of solitude, therapy, and spiritual work, something in her shifted. She didn't just want a partner anymore. She wanted a mirror, someone who could meet her as she was. Not a savior, not a project, a peer. Months later, she met Jonah, a man on a similar path of awakening. And for the first time, she experienced something radical: intimacy without enmeshment, love without losing herself. This was a conscious relationship, and it changed everything. This is what the awakened empath is capable of, building relationships based on truth, not trauma. In ancient Greek philosophy, Aristotle spoke of three types of friendship: those of pleasure, utility, and virtue. The first two fade, but the third, the friendship of virtue, is rare and sacred. It's based on mutual growth, respect, and shared vision. The sovereign empath seeks only this now. They no longer settle for crumbs. They feast at tables of integrity. They ask, does this connection honor my truth? Do I feel safe to express, to evolve, to be silent when needed? Am I being met, not just loved? And if the answer is no, they bless and release. This may sound cold to some, but it's not. It's wise. The sovereign empath has learned that boundaries are not walls, they are gates, deciding who gets access to their sacred space. They are no longer interested in proving their worth. They know their worth, and from that knowing, they curate their circle with love and discernment. Neuroscientific studies now confirm that the brain wires itself through relationships. Dr. Louis Cozolino, author of The Neuroscience of Human Relationships, explains that we regulate our nervous system through secure emotional bonds. But the opposite is also true. Toxic bonds dysregulate and even shrink certain brain functions. The sovereign empath doesn't ignore this anymore. They protect their peace not out of fear, but out of knowledge. Spiritually, this stage is echoed in the teachings of mystics across traditions. The Sufis speak of Sobet, sacred companionship that elevates the soul. The Buddhists call it Kalyana Mittata, spiritual friendship on the path to enlightenment. Even Jesus, in the Gospel of John, shifted from calling his followers servants to friends when they became conscious of love. The sovereign empath walks in this lineage now. They are no longer bound to trauma bonds. They are builders of soul bonds. And here's the most powerful truth of all. They are no longer afraid of solitude, because they have made peace with their own company. Loneliness is no longer emptiness. It is sacred space. They know that whoever cannot honor their silence does not deserve their song. From this place, they become magnetic, not because they chase, but because they attract through alignment. The narcissist can no longer hook them. The emotionally unavailable cannot hold them. The half-present cannot reach them. They are no longer resonating with chaos. They are vibrating at clarity. If you've made it this far, take a moment, not to rush forward, but to feel the stillness of what has just moved through you. This wasn't just a video. This was a remembering of the part of you that always knew deep down that your sensitivity was never weakness, that your ability to feel profoundly was never a flaw, that your desire to fix, to heal, to love without holding back was not foolish, it was sacred. But now you've crossed a threshold. You've seen that being kind doesn't mean being blind, that forgiveness does not require self-abandonment, that silence, when chosen consciously, is the language of the healed. And most of all, you've seen that you were never broken, only buried, and that your pain was not the end of you, it was the beginning. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And you, dear empath, are finally becoming. No longer the one who stays to prove love. No longer the one who bends to avoid conflict. No longer the one who says yes when every cell in your body says no. You've learned to walk away not in bitterness, but in sovereignty. To detach not out of fear, but from fierce clarity. To love not from a place of longing, but from the fullness of your healed heart. And perhaps most powerfully, you've learned to sit with your own soul, to look into the silence and find not emptiness, but presence. Not loneliness, but sacred solitude. The world needs more of you, not more of your pain, not more of your sacrifice, but more of your truth, your joy, your peace, your boundaries, your voice. Because when one empath awakens, they don't just heal themselves, they heal the field around them. They become the ones who hold light not to be praised, but to quietly show the way. They become mirrors, reflecting what's real. They become lighthouses, silent, steady, unshakable. So as you go back into the world after this video, go gently, but go with power. Let your presence speak more than your explanations ever could. Let your eyes say what your words never needed to. Let your silence become your signature of strength. You are not alone. You never were. But now you know it. And if this message stirred something ancient inside you, something that feels like truth remembered rather than truth learned, then I invite you to breathe into that, to stay with it, to honor it. And if you feel called, share it. There is someone out there right now, in the silence of their own pain, who needs to know that what they feel is not madness, but awakening. Leave a comment below if you've been down this path or are currently on it. Share if you're still searching for your voice, your peace, your strength. No matter what, you are seen. You are welcomed. You belong here. Subscribe if this journey resonates with your soul. Hit the bell if you want to keep walking it with us, and share this video with one person, just one, who might need a reminder that their sensitivity is their superpower. You're watching Awakened Wisdom, where ancient truth meets modern awakening, where the empath story is no longer one of quiet suffering, but of sovereign rising. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, stay soft, stay strong, and most of all, stay you.